Good evening, everyone. Welcome to week 5 in CE 155, Facility Layout and Design. Chef Eric and I welcome you to another fine live session. Yes. Yeah. Can you believe it is week 5 out of 6? So congratulations, everyone. Chef Eric and I are very proud of everybody's performance so far. This has been a fantastic class, and hats off to everybody. So great job. You should all be proud of yourselves. It's a great thing to get through another class. Good evening, Roberta. How are you?
Doing good.
Awesome.
A little busy where I am, but
yeah. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get you muted.
So I wanted to, and I'm sure Chef Eric is going to kind of jump on the bandwagon with this one as well. I wanted to broach a subject that's very important. As we're going through this course, and all of the courses here at Escoffier are a little bit untraditional in the educational system. A lot of stuff, you go to school, you learn math, you learn English, and you use little bits of that as you progress throughout your educational career and into life. However, here, all of the stuff that we teach you is vital information that you must continue to practice and utilize and stay relevant with for the remainder of your career. I know Chef Eric has brought up a lot of very valuable information in these live sessions. This is information that you must keep relevant, fresh in your mind, and continue to practice and let it grow as it goes along. And the whole story goes, just because you can brunoise a carrot doesn't mean that you've mastered brunoising a carrot. You must continue to practice to become proficient. Even at our stages, we still continue to practice with our knife skills. We still practice with our numbers. We still practice with our layouts in order to get ourselves better. And as a word of advice, once you learn this information, make sure that you remain open-minded, which will continue to allow to grow throughout the remainder of your career. When I graduated from culinary school, I had taken a class similar to this, and I knew everything there was to know about facility design at the ripe age of 21 years old. And it took me a few years to realize I didn't know anything. And so I highly recommend that you keep an open mind towards your education. Take what you can get, use it, and allow it to grow. So
yeah. On that note, Chef, I don't know if you guys remember back in CE 115 where there was that one assignment where we had you kind of like do some research, right? And a matter of different fonts, different typing, different computer skills, right? Inserting pictures, all that stuff. There was a quote on there, knowing is not enough. One must apply what they learn in order to continue that education. You can go ahead and read the Encyclopedia Britannica from front to back, right? Mm-hmm. And you can memorize it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually smart enough to use it. That's the thing. Absolutely. You must continually absorb these learning moments on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, if that is what is happening, is to make sure that you're constantly going back, reviewing, right? Taking that feedback, taking that criticism, positively, because we grow from it, right? No matter how brutal some of that stuff can be, the idea is that you want to learn from these experiences and how you might have to adapt and change that style of learning, or even adapt to a new style of learning, right? Like Chef Week says, this is not exactly, a scripted or like laid out typical means of education, right? Mm-hmm. I like to think of this as an excelled culinary program because, you guys are only in here for 13 months and you learn a lot, right? But the thing is, you have to retain that learning mindset and keep on progressing forward with that. If you don't, you then kind of start to lose everything you just learned, and then it becomes irrelevant, and then that $15,000 you spent on your education just becomes debt.
Yep, absolutely. So, they talk a lot, and I'm sure Chef Eric did this too. When you're first starting out in the kitchen, they want you to keep a notepad in your pocket, and they want you to take notes so you can get everything that you're being taught. 37 years later, I still use that notebook. And I still have my original notebook from when I opened up the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess many, many moons ago. So the information stays there. So use it, continue to grow, continue to work it, continue to practice it.
Yeah, like I told you guys, I still have all my work from 3 years ago during my schooling. I reflect back at it. I look at my production sheets. I look at my flavor journals, and I go, wow, I described that like that. And I kind of sometimes I get a good chuckle, but then I was like, oh, wow, I described that like that. Oh, I can see that. All right, cool. I was on point that day.
But you know what the coolest thing is? That I really enjoy about that, you were talking about your stuff 3 years ago, and you look and you're like, why did I do that? It's the growth that we have as people, and we see ourselves grow. And so if you can refer back to this information 10 years from now, you'll look back and you say, wow, I've really grown a lot. I've achieved. And it's a big motivating factor for a lot of us in life, to see that growth. So ladies and gents, moving on to week 4. Talking about week 4 and how that went for all of us. I know the back of the house was the big thing that we worked on last week, and we saw some great designs. Chef Eric, what did you think about the assignments this week?
I personally love the assignments. As many of you probably didn't really agree too much or really care too much probably for my feedback. But like I mentioned, it's a matter of growing and learning and remembering those different things that you might have missed. Is like if you have a 1,050 square foot back of house kitchen, you're not going to want just one hand sink. Okay, like just one hand sink, 2 garbage cans. Probably not going to be able to. You're going to be changing those garbage cans at least every half an hour if you only have 2 of them, because you're going to have so much stuff. Anytime you mess up, generally we try and keep 1 garbage can on every station, right? Each person has their own garbage can that they then they have to dispose of whatever at the end of the night, and then hand sinks. Generally the same sort of idea, not nearly as many as you would say a trash can, but they are of necessity, right? Even that dishwasher needs a hand sink, okay?
You don't want to be wasting your footsteps on going across the kitchen. You don't want to pay somebody to carry a piece of plastic wrap 30 feet and back. It's not good economics.
Exactly.
Yeah, I worked the saute station last Friday night. Up at a restaurant that I help out at every now and then. I took 20,000 footsteps in a 4-hour period. So, and that's a pretty efficient layout there. So imagine if you only have trash cans, once every 70, 80 feet, that's a lot of footsteps. So.
And especially if you only have, 3 of them laid out, think of then those extra footsteps you're going to have to take to get that replacement garbage bag, to go ahead and throw that out or put it out the back door to the dumpster, right? Those are so many extra footsteps that are completely unnecessary because we have a time frame for that, right? We want to stay as efficient as possible. If we are constantly changing our trash, are we getting our prep done? Are we getting those mise en place? Are we getting, our service? Is our customer suffering from this because we have to spend so much other time doing other things?
How did everybody's operational flow look?
Flow-wise was actually pretty nice. As to where a lot of them kept, all their hot in nice structured line, right? To where that's where that hood's gonna go. And then they had a nice in and out for those servers to come and go. When it came down to that backdoor situation, though, there was a little iffy on some of those, to where that back door on one side of the establishment, while all your walk-in and everything else is on the other side of the establishment. Not really efficient there, right? You want to have that delivery guy be able to walk in that door, go ahead and drop it out, either straight in and get his butt straight out, right? So that way you can also put that stuff away as quickly as possible. Otherwise, that guy is going to probably come in and he's going to be in the way, or he's going to be dropping off your goods in the way, right? So last thing you want is your delivery guy to go ahead and be dropping off your food in your dish pit, right? So you really don't want that.
Been there, done that.
Seen that happen way too many a time. So remember, flow for everybody is key. right? Not just, your line cooks, but also that delivery guy that's going to come and drop off your product for you, right? Also your servers, right? Your servers have to be able to come, drop off whatever plates they want, grab food, wash their hands, grab food, go right back out, right? Got to have efficiency. Less footsteps for everybody, the more efficient you're going to be.
Footsteps cost money. What about ice machines and such? Did everybody remember those?
Ice machines, that was a little tricky one. Was to where I was more concentrating on the sides of the hand sinks and the trash cans and that flow, and then making sure a lot of you guys are leaving out the details pertaining to that concept summary.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a quick 10% right off the top. Right?
Yep.
So it's key because if you're saying you have a food truck, but you went ahead and filled out the back of the house in that small bakery or the small restaurant, that's not necessarily your kitchen, right?
Absolutely. So great job, everybody. That was some great feedback, Chef Eric. And it sounds like everybody got a general good comprehension of designing the back of the house. And it sounds like there's a little bit more thought that goes into it than what we originally thought was going to go into it. We talked about the cost of construction around $275 a square foot. If you make those mistakes now, they're going to be very, very expensive to fix. So make sure you get those hand sinks, garbage receptacles, and all the other operational efficiencies right off the bat. And like Chef Eric and I mentioned, this is something you will be involved in your career in culinary arts, one way or the other. Whether you own the restaurant, whether you work at the restaurant, regardless, you will at some point have something to do with operational and facility layout. Moving on to our next subject, ladies and gents. Next week is our last week here in CE 155, week 6. Congratulations, which also tells us that the holidays are rapidly approaching. Make sure that you stay alive, keep it going for the next 2 weeks. As culinarians, we get invited to a lot of Christmas functions. And when you can cook, everybody wants you there for their party. So you're going to be popular. A lot of things are going on. Families coming in town. Keep school a priority. Don't let your guard down with only 2 weeks to go. It's not worth it. Next week's assignment for week 6. Make sure it is submitted to Chef Eric no later than Sunday, December the 16th, no later than 11:59 p.m. We are going into our winter solace the following Tuesday, and if you do not submit, you will not get your grade back in a reasonable time. So please be respectful to Chef Eric. Get your assignment submitted no later than Sunday, December the 16th, in order to get your grade back in a reasonable time.
Yeah, and mind you guys, there's no exceptions to that deadline.
No.
Okay. That is a firm deadline at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Mind you, you guys get that stuff done early, that's extra time going towards that break for you. All right. So sooner you stay on top of week 5. All right. You fall behind in week 5. Week 6 is going to be that much harder for you. Okay. So make sure that we stay on top of week 5, get a head start when we finish off, and look into what we need to be doing. Review those learning lessons, do those knowledge checks, right? Check out that stuff. Make sure that we're staying on top of our game, so that way we can get submit Thursday, submit Friday, right? So that way if we need to make any adjustments, we're giving ourselves ample time to do so as well, okay?
Right. Santa Claus is watching, so make sure you do it right. Yeah.
So is that elf on the shelf, right?
Elf on the shelf is glaring down at you. It's actually elf on the ceiling fan. I tied him to the ceiling fan. Yeah, because now he's spinning around.
Mine just freaked out at the little nutcracker that sits on the table. She wasn't having it. She's like, she saw his mouth move and she freaked out.
We had to turn the ceiling fan off, though, because it got down to 73 in Tucson today. It's like the Arctic tundra here. It's horrible. I can't wear flip-flops. Yeah. All right, ladies and gents, moving on to week 5 here in CE 155. Let's take a look at our class page for this week to make sure that we are all on the same page. Research materials, we're talking about exterior design and landscaping. We're going to get a little bit more into that during the class period. It is a critical element in your restaurant, as it is the first exposure to your customer and often draws a customer in the door. So make sure you read and understand those research materials completely and thoroughly. Thank you very much, everybody that is here and present at our live session. This is where we share the vital information and leads you to success. And make sure, if you're not here, and you wouldn't know it because you're not here, and so you wouldn't be able to hear this, but at any rate, make sure you watch the live session if you miss, or watch the live session archive if you miss the live session. Discussion forum. This is probably one of the best discussion forums I've seen. It's called Peer Review. You are going to share your concept with your peers, which is absolutely fantastic. In the restaurant industry, we hear a lot of constructive criticism. You have two choices in life. You can fight that constructive criticism and blame it on the other person, or you can accept the information and grow from it. And as chefs, you will have people that are very critical towards your food and provide a lot of feedback. And you need to be very open-minded. That's how we grow and we develop in this industry. So take advantage of this opportunity. It will only make you a better culinarian in the long run. Our assignment this week is super cool. We are designing for flow and for labor needs in the kitchen. It's a fun assignment because you really have to think through how the food and the labor is going to move through your kitchen, and you get to use little dots to point everything out, right? Chef Eric, did you have anything to add regarding the criticism that we receive as chefs going through industry?
Take it like a grain of salt, okay? Is to where if you sit there and be like, okay, look, this person's criticizing me left and right, you're only going to lower your morale, okay? Take it as positively as it is meant to be given, okay? Even if you have that autocratic manager that wants to sit there and say it's my way or the highway, do what I say kind of thing, still take it, okay? Because that criticism, any criticism that you are given is always a learning moment, right? You know, kind of take it what they're given, try and figure out what they really mean. If that means you have to ask more questions, okay? But it's a growing experience. Don't dwell on it. Go ahead and take it for what it is. It's criticism, okay? Whether it's positive or negative, it's still going to help you grow, not only as a chef, but also as an individual.
Yep, absolutely. Good advice. And ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to giving criticism, your point is a recommendation, and you should do everything you can to get the other person to perceive your recommendation in a positive fashion. And I'll give you an example. If I was to run into the kitchen and I would say, hey, Chef Eric, your hair is like not with it today, and that steak you put out last night was garbage. It was the worst, right? I'm not going to get a lot of positive feedback regarding my recommendations, right? But if I do walk in the kitchen and I say, hey, Chef Eric, I really think you're doing a great job. Is there any way that you could put a hat on? We'd really appreciate it. Hey, by the way, when you're cooking your New York steak, I think it came out great last night, but you need to work a little bit more on your seasoning and the application of your sauce. I think that'll really help you out, and the customers would really appreciate it too. But other than that, you're fantastic. You're an awesome dude. You know what? Chef Eric's going to walk out of there like, hey, I rock, you know? And that's what we want. We want our staff members, and we want to keep those around us in a very positive light. Is very, very important. So when you are providing feedback to your fellow students, to your future staff members, and to everyone else in your life, always take it from a very positive perspective that you're trying to help them improve, right? And what you are saying is your perspective and your recommendation. So certainly keep that in mind, because that's what we're here for, to help one another. We don't want to put anybody down or say anything negative, because it doesn't work in the long run. So moving on to our exterior design and landscaping this week, which is a very critical topic in the restaurant industry. Don't get swept away by what it should be. your exterior design and landscaping should be a reflection of your concept. It's very, very important. I've got a couple of pictures here that we're going to pull up here in just a moment. But what it does is it sets the tone for your customer's dining experience. We recently ate at Peugeot in Mexico City, which is one of the world's top 50 restaurants. And you would think it would have this glitter and glow on the outside of it, like the sun was coming down and the angels were up above. And much to my dismay, I was quite surprised, because after we finally found the facility, there was no signage, there were no lights, there were no windows, and there was just a small door that entered into this restaurant. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know, that makes so much sense. Things that are sophisticated are often sleek and without decoration and without decor. They're very simple, right? You were talking about Rolls-Royce, Chef Eric, at the beginning of the class, and it's a very understated design. It's a very sleek design, but there's no whistles, bells, and you know, there's not Daltons on the car, you know, and it represents an upscale nature. So taking a look here at some of the exterior designs that are kind of represent what I'm talking about. If I was to take a look at this picture up here in the left-hand corner, what would you think it is? Would you think it's a steakhouse? No, probably not. But when I look at it,
Breakfast, brunch.
yeah, exactly. When I look at it, I think frisee with strawberry vinaigrette and quiche. Right?
Mimosas and
Mimosas, yeah, that type of stuff. So this design and this exterior landscape is very replicative of what the concept actually is, and it is a small bistro that does specialize in brunch. So that's actually up in Oregon. And then down here, when I take a look at this place, it definitely screams what it should be. I kind of get the idea that maybe I could get a Philly cheesesteak sandwich there. They might serve fish and chips. It's not a very fancy place. It's probably a little bit more upscale. I feel like eating lunch there when I look at it. And so that very much reflects what their actual concept is, and it is a little bit more of a casual lunch restaurant. Up here, when I take a look at this place here, it's not the nicest.
Screams Hispanic food to me, sure.
It screams out. It's an actual Mexican restaurant, right? And it's a family-run Mexican restaurant. And Chef Eric nailed it on the head. It's what the concept, the exterior sets the ambiance when you walk through the door, so you can actually feel it. Down here, this is an actual restaurant in Arizona where I live. And once again, there's no signage, very few windows, very discreet, right? And it screams that there's a certain level of elegance in there. It's understated in nature. So I find that very true. This concept down here, when I take a look at it, the one on the bottom, what do you think?
Ask casual. Sit back, go ahead, and I walk up to the countertop and order my food. They give it to me right there. I sit down. It's either that or they give me a number that I sit on my table, and I go, I'm going to sit back and wait. I fill up my own free refills and that whole 9 yards.
Yep. Absolutely. You're right on the money. And you know what that's all about is before these customers walk in through the door, right? They already know what to expect. So, you know, subconsciously or consciously, we don't really realize this very often in our daily lives, or those of us that aren't in the restaurant business, we don't realize it. But we start marketing and selling to our customers before they even walk in through our front door. So it's something definitely to keep on hand. Landscaping is a big deal for a lot of restaurants. Remember, we all want to do a garden from Athens in the front of our restaurant with cypress trees and rose bushes and grapevines, but be conscientious of the fact that is also another added monthly expense to maintain and take care of, and everything else. So you don't see a lot of restaurants that do that because it is a very expensive.
Gardner, water bill.
Gardner, water bill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So be careful of that. A lot of these places that have the more ornate fronts to their restaurants actually consider that a part of their marketing expense. So once you get into your financials in 165, remember a lot of that can be set into your marketing budget. Cost of signage, cost of landscape, cost of front of the house or exterior maintenance. That is all advertising to your customers. So be aware of that. Does anybody have any questions about outside of the restaurant?
I personally would be going for that nice, elegant, hidden kind of idea right there. Just not really too much. I like that. What is that called, Chef? Xeriscaping?
Yeah. It's actually very. It's actually
very big down there in Arizona.
Yeah. When I know before I would go into a place like that, I always check the balance on my credit cards. I mean, I pull in the parking lot, I look at the outside, then I call the bank, just to make sure it's going to be all right. Another part of restaurant exteriors that we oftentimes do not take into consideration would be the backside of the restaurant. Backsides of restaurants are oftentimes very unsightly. We keep our boxes, our mop buckets, our cleaning chemicals. We have storage cages out there. We have floor mats. We have garbage cans and everything else. So you need to really take into consideration exactly how that's going to look. And you want to make sure that it is well disguised because you never want any customer to see your backside. Yeah, that's very, very important. So be well aware of that.
Think of it kind of like a plumber's crack.
Exactly. Cover that puppy up.
I want to see that.
Cover that puppy up. Yep. You don't want to be popping the junk in the trunk to your customers, man. It ain't right. Yeah. And for those that are, once you guys are in industry, you're going to understand the challenges of maintaining the backside of a restaurant. It's you have cooks that run out there. They're busy. They're running. They're tired. They just dump stuff on the dock. The floors oftentimes are black from the amount of grease that gets coated out there. So it's a lot of maintenance. So
oh yeah, you got your grease trap back there, and that's not exactly always the easiest thing to try and travel from those fryers when you're changing them and get it all the way out there to that back dock. Splish splash. Next thing you know, grease all over the place. Do you think you got time to go ahead and bust out the scrub deck brush and scrub down that sidewalk? No, but somebody's going to have to do it eventually.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, moving on to our next topic, which is a part of our assignment this week, and it's very, very important. We are going to be discussing workflow in the workplace, and it's a critical and oftentimes unthought subject. We've talked several times here about footsteps. I just mentioned the other night was 20,000 footsteps for me, and that's quite a bit on this old dog. And you have to remember and take into consideration the wear and tear that you put on your staff. When you're working your cooks 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you have to remember people get tired. Even though they keep moving forward, they're still tired. That's when mistakes and inefficiencies happen. So workflow is extremely critical. There are few places in our modern society, other than football fields, that are as dramatic as kitchens. Okay, kitchens, people are moving fast. They're under stress. We're twisting, we're burning, we're dumping, we're standing, we're kneeling. We are moving. We're almost acrobatic in a sense. And we have to make sure that we provide an environment for our staffs to do that in safely. So, which is very, very critical that you have to worry about. It's almost like it's a very high speed, some form of choreography, like they've put this, like Paula Abdul put this dance together for us to dance throughout the kitchen. For those of you that have not been in the industry yet and seen it, it actually does happen on a regular basis. This is why operational flow is so important. If I had Chef Eric running my grill, right? He was my grill guy on a Saturday night, and he needed more ribeye steaks. and he had to cross in front of the expo, the saute guy, the garde-manger guy, go through the dish station, cut across the servers to grab more steaks, and then cut back across to all of those people. Imagine the accidents and the inefficiencies that are going to occur in that time, right? And every footstep he takes, you're paying him, right? Every footstep he takes is a second longer than a customer has to wait for their foods. It's a very, very important subject. So we have to remember that when we walk into the restaurant, 12 hours later when we leave, it goes by like that. It's like a 2-second day. You won't even remember most of it. But when a customer comes into your restaurant and they're hungry and they have to wait 15 minutes for their meal, it seems like an eternity, especially if you have small children that are yelling and screaming, an angry spouse, right? So you may think, hey, it's only a couple of minutes. That's a long wait for people when they're really hungry. So this subject goes a long way. This exercise, as you're preparing it this week, you really need to put yourself in the frame of a mind of a chef, right? You have to think about how you are moving, okay? When we have a workstation, a typical workstation is going to be about 5 feet by about 3 feet long. And every time you have to cross another workstation, you are creating blockage in the flow of your workspace, right? So you have to be very, very conscientious of that. Let's take a look at a good flow here and how it should work, right? So theoretically, like Chef Eric was mentioning at the beginning of the class, there were a couple of issues with backdoor location. Back doors need to be conveniently located near your storage areas, which include your walk-in, your dry storage, your chemical storage. All of that needs to be accessible and not cut across any flow of traffic. So the food that comes in, right? Your hamburgers get delivered, they go into storage, they get pulled out and go into preparation, then they get cooked, then they get held, and then they go to the food service area, then all this stuff gets washed up, and then the leftovers or whatever scrap you have goes into the garbage can. That is an appropriate flow of food throughout your facility. Any questions about that? No? You're probably going to hear something about HACCP later on in the course, Hazardous Analysis Critical Control Point, which we use in a lot of larger facilities. And that tracks the flow of food throughout a facility, and that's where we take temperatures, et cetera, et cetera. So you will get into that. Chef Eric, do you have anything to add to the flow?
Just remember, like Chef said, no bottlenecks. Don't start kind of converting, crossing paths, that whole thing. If you got to try and dip around, you're going to run into a lot of issues, right? Like you said, there's cost. And, it's like you want to be a well-oiled machine, right? Think of gears, right? That constantly are turning within your establishment. Each individual that works for your company is a different gear. Each gear has to work with an opposite gear. The broil guy or your grill guy has to work with that saute guy. Saute guy has to work with that fry guy. Everything has to move in sync, okay? To where if something gets blocked up, AKA a bottleneck, everybody's going to one area. Why do you think we said have one door that opens, one door to go out, right?
Yep.
In, out. Otherwise, you're going to have bottlenecks forming at that door because somebody's got a full tray, or you might have a large tabletop, right, that you go ahead and have like 20 different plates going out with 3 different servers delivering that food all at the same time. But then you have like a line coming into the kitchen waiting on that delivery, to go out, right? Yep. So be cautious.
Yep. Absolutely. Good advice. Good advice. Speaking of safety issues, like if you're working a saute station, you're going in and out of the ovens, and the oven is always down below your saute station. And if you have a guy cutting across your line to get more mise en place, he's going to trip over those ovens, and those ovens are 500-600 degrees, and that's going to cause quite a bit of damage. And You certainly don't want to get any of your staff members hurt. It's a very, very sensitive thing. It's a very costly thing as well in the restaurant industry. Now, in order to direct the flow of traffic in the restaurant industry, we use what is called a POS system, a point of sale system, which sends tickets to certain areas of the kitchen to prepare certain things. So, my POS system will be programmed, depending on the size of the facility, to send my orders to the saute station, or to send my orders to the grill station, or send my orders to the expediter station, which will then call the orders out. So we don't have people running up to look at tickets, and we don't have the pantry people cutting across the kitchen saying, hey, what's on that ticket? Because they have their own tickets, because the POS system sends out the directional information. So that's very important. Something else that is really critical when it comes to developing workplace flow is the creation of operational procedures, which is critical. Operational procedures, for example, deliveries. When they come in, when you order $6,000 worth of product, or you order 150 cases to be delivered, that's going to clog up your walkways, right? Don't you think, with guys carrying boxes back and forth? So your operational procedures would state, we only receive deliveries between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you can make your schedule according to prevent that flow of traffic, right? Operational procedures, X, Y, and Z are only scheduled these hours, and this is what they're supposed to do. Eliminates the flow of traffic, so be very, very conscientious about that.
On that note, Chef, you can also, a lot of larger accounts and corporate accounts might even give a key to your establishment, so that when you receive your deliveries, they come drop it off in your dry storage, all your dried goods. They drop off all your frozen goods in your freezer. They drop off all your regular fresh produce, things like that, in your actual walk-in cooler for you, right? You come in the morning, 4 or 5 a.m., you open up, and you're like, ooh, all right, well, time to get to putting this stuff away, counting what I got, double checking that list, that invoice, making sure everything's copacetic.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's kind of something that just started recently, I think, within the past couple of years, with people that they're actually licensed and bonded, and they come into your facility 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, drop the goods, and go. So that makes life a little bit easier for you. Something else you need to be very well aware of is the sanitation component of this entire project. You have to remember, if you have a dishwasher that has to take his trash can across the line where all your cooks are working to empty it in the middle of service, you're going to create a big blockage. If you have servers to come into the kitchen to pick up the food, and they have to cut in front of the dish station, and they have to go around to the back to the prep area to pick up their dishes, it's going to create a clog. Think of yourself as designing a city, right? Cities have to have stoplights and stop signs and yield signs and everything else. So it's the same planning mentality that goes into this whole thing. Really take into consideration your timing as well. Timing is critical. If you know that you're going to be braising and stewing and everything else back in your prep areas, and that's going to take hours and hours to complete those projects, you're not going to be closing down that prep area till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. You've got to be conscientious of the cooks running back there to get set up, people coming in and out of the back doors, et cetera, et cetera. Take into all aspects of this kitchen flow. Let's take a look at this week's assignment to see what's going on here. We are in week 5. We're going to select 2 menu items from slide 1 that you worked on earlier in the course. And you're going to mark them with colored workflow labels from the left margin, okay? You will map out the workflow for each of these on your restaurant layout. Everybody got that so far? Pretty simple, okay? So for this particular example, we have chosen duck confit, which is a braised duck in its own fat, and chicken Caesar salad. So those are the 2 items that have been chosen for this particular exercise. And you're going to start with label 1, and you're going to work your way through label 5 or 6. Okay? So 1 is the starting point. 6 would be the ending point. Does that make sense? That makes sense, Chef Eric? Okay. So for example, the product is stored in the storeroom, right? And then it gets moved to the prep area. And then looks like here it gets moved to a refrigerator, set of convection ovens where it's cooked. And then it's moved back to the storage area where it is cooled. And then it is sent to the stove where it is prepared for the customer. And then step 6 is where it is served from. By putting these dots down on your chart, you're going to avoid bottleneck areas, right? So for example, if I saw all the red dots, if Chef Eric takes a look at your weekly assignment and he sees all the red dots here on the stove, he's going to say, hey, this doesn't look right, you know? So this is a nice example because things are spread out throughout the kitchen. So one of the things that we're trying to prevent this week is from everything getting grouped into one small area, which causes challenges. So I'm pulling up the actual template that we're going to be working with this week. Chef Eric, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, those issues that Chef's talking about is what I mentioned when it comes down to bottlenecks, right? Is if you have everything that needs to go ahead and be in one single spot, that's going to be a bunch of issues right there, right? Because there's no possible way. I mentioned it to a few of you via your back of house layouts in preparation for this week's assignment, is to where, you know, if you got, like Chef Weeks said, is if your grill guy has to go past your saute guy, past your fry guy, past your oven guy, you know, past your pantry, just to get a reload on some steaks, that's an issue, right? Because you want ease of access, right? So make sure, like I said before in some of you guys' feedbacks, you got to have some sort of refrigeration storage on that line as well, right? Those things double as, you know, prep tables and refrigeration, right? Is to make sure that you can have that backup on the line. So that way you don't have to worry about going all the way to that walk-in, fetching more ingredients, okay? A lot of you just had a walk-in, no real coolers on that line for any of that sort of backup storage, right? Because that's what's going to cause a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of confusion, a lot of more steps that are unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and like we've talked a lot about in this class, it all comes down to money. First and foremost is safety, but then secondly comes down to money. If you do not think this through before you actually design your kitchen, and you have to go back and you have to rearrange your kitchen after you've paid a tremendous amount of money to have it done correctly, woo, daddy, that's a lot of money out of your pocket. So let's take a look. You're going to be working with the slide that you did last week with your back of the house design, and I have a blank one here. I'm sorry. There it is. So I have a blank one here, the back of the house design. Theoretically, you should have your ranges, you should have your sinks, and everything else in place already. So for example, with your first item, let's say it's a hamburger, right? When it is delivered, you are going to left click on top of the first label, right? Number 1, right? And it gets delivered into the walk-in, okay? Then the second place that the hamburger goes to is the line. And you left click on number 2 and drop it up onto your line, preferably into refrigeration. And then label 3, it would be cooked. Say in this restaurant, they cook it on the stove. And then label 4, it would be assembled, preferably on the line right here. and then label 5, it would be put into the window. Does that make sense for everyone? We don't need to use all 15 dots of each color. Make sure that you use a different color dot to signify each item. As we looked, you need to go back to slide 1, and you're going to put your color label on the 2 items that you choose. Make sense? So if you have chicken, and then down here in the other one, you're going to use pasta, right? You can put the red dot with chicken, and then you can put the green dot with pasta. This way Chef Eric can identify which items you are working with. So Chef Eric will be referring back to your slide 1, so he will know which items that you are using. Does everybody understand that? And then once you have chosen your 2 items off your station map equipment list that you did earlier in the course, you will switch over to slide 3 or slide 4 or slide 6, right? Depending on whether you did a regular size restaurant, a bakery small restaurant, or on slide 6, a food truck. Okay? And you will have your equipment already listed in your food truck, and you will just slide and place your dots where they belong. Chef Eric, does that make sense?
Makes plenty of sense, Chef Weeks. I'm gonna, if I could steal this show from you for a minute.
Tear it up, man.
All right. All right. So here's a little something. Okay. So this is the one that I did back 3 years ago in school, right? Remember, like I said, always looking, always checking things out, always trying to keep myself consistently learning. Okay. Luckily for you guys, how many do they have to do, Chef? 2?
2 items.
Okay, well, mind you, we had to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think just 5 was our thing. So see how I got all those labeled like that? That's how Chef Weeks is talking about. Go ahead, put that, little decal there. Let yourself know what's what, all right? And then you want to move it over to that layout. Okay, so let's see if I can get this other picture out of the way. Let's go up to the kitchen. Okay, so to where, mind you, we didn't have the delivery lineup. We had from prep is where we started. So you generally start something prepped up here, or prep in your prep sinks, prep table, prep sinks, walk-in, dry storage. Okay, then take these over to your line. Okay, and then go from there. 1, 2, let's see, I think 3 is up in here, 4, 5 is how many steps that takes. Some might take a little bit more, as to where if you're serving that as a combo meal, right? You're picking something that's a combo meal, that dish is going to be also created on the fry, right?
You know what, Chef Eric? Chef Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt. They still want you to do all 5 items.
Oh.
It's not 2 items, everybody. It's all 5 items.
There we go.
All 5 items on your on your slide 1. Not 2, all 5.
There's the clarification for you all. So hence why then there's 5 different colors, right?
Yes.
All right. So definitely utilize those things. Reach out to Chef Weeks. Reach out to myself. Right? I already know a couple of you have already had some Zoom sessions with me, so I'll be more than happy to help you all with setting up another Zoom session with anybody who needs it. Okay, so that way we can go over these, really get these thoroughly lined out for you, especially if you don't have any, especially if you don't have that much experience in the industry pertaining to the creation of these dishes. But remember, everything you learned in CA 101, CA 102, everything you learned in CA 121, that type of stuff is what we want you guys to also think about when you goes into that preparation. Okay, so think about those techniques that you've learned. Think about how you create those dishes. Okay.
Absolutely, right on the money. Those are great suggestions. Just as a reminder, one more time, make sure that you do all 5 items, not 2 items. I misread. I thought they changed it to 2 because they were talking about it, but they didn't. It is all 5 items. So you're going to utilize your slide 1, and then you're going to switch over to your back of the house, whether it be a full restaurant, small restaurant, bakery, cafe, or to your food truck, and then you are going to move the dots around to explain the flow of the food throughout your kitchen. Very critical. It affects everything that's going on. So, any questions from anyone? Thoughts, concerns? Yeah.
Remember, guys, if you have missed assignments, get your makeups done, and then go ahead and approach this assignment, because that you can't do this assignment without doing your back house layout. It's not possible. Okay.
Right.
That week 1 even, you got to have something there. So this whole course that you guys are going through for the last 4.5 weeks now, going on 5.5 weeks here in a quick minute, right? Let's go ahead and get that makeup work turned in now. Okay, so that way we can get some feedback to that, get those improvements done to our past work that we have missed, or even work that we didn't receive that grade that we're looking for, okay?
Do not bury Chef Eric on Sunday with a ton of makeup work. He will not appreciate it.
No, and if you bury me on Sunday with the makeup work, that's pretty much your final call on that assignment as well, as to where that makeup work, it's still revisitable. Okay, so go back, fix it. If you've submitted something in your makeup and you still need improvements, get after it, right? Let's finish strong, because we're going to have 3 weeks of kicking back. Maybe some of us going to go and play fun in the sun. Some of us are going to go play cold and frigid areas as well. But make sure that you're staying on top of this stuff, because all this stuff, like Chef Weeks mentioned in the very beginning of this course, is ongoing learning. All right, it's a matter of this stuff you will be using in the future. If you are passionate, and I know everybody here is, that is on screen and in this session, as well as off screen and listening to this as an archive, right? There's a reason why you're doing this. You have a goal. Keep that goal, keep it alive. Let that be your fire to keep pushing you through the holiday, okay?
Absolutely. Great words of advice. And as always, if anybody's concerned about your grade, please make sure that you reach out and you get a hold of myself so we can kind of create a plan to help you move forward. It is Chef Eric and I's goal to get you through this class and get you on to the next. And we are here to support you and help you succeed. So it's up to you to reach out and say, hey, I need help. I'm missing these assignments. What can I do? What are my options? Hey, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can work out for you to help you out. We certainly don't want you to be left behind. If nobody has any other questions, it's been a good live session. And thank you very much for your participation and your attendance. Chef Eric and I look forward to speaking with you this week, and we hope to see you all next Thursday at 7 p.m. for our final week 6 live session of CE 155. Have a great night, everybody.
Text me, call him, text him.
Yes, absolutely.